Working radar at Dulles Airport.
One of my colleagues saw a target moving quite fast from the northwest to the southeast. So we all started watching that target, and she notified the supervisor. But nobody knew that was a commercial flight at the time. Nobody knew that was American 77.
What did you think? It was a military flight of some kind? When you
I thought it was a military flight. I thought that Langley had scrambled some fighters and maybe one of them got up there.
It was really moving fast.
It was moving very fast, like a military aircraft might move at a low altitude.
How long were you able to track what turned out to be Americans?
Well, it was heading right towards the prohibited area in downtown Washington, and that covers the Capitol and the White House. We then called the White House on the hotline to let them know.
Controllers activate a hotline to the Secret Service, and within seconds, agents are frantically evacuating the White House. The president is in Florida, but the Secret Service whisked Vice President Dick Cheney into an underground bunker.
Then it turned south and away from the prohibited area, which seemed like a momentary sigh of relief. And it disappeared, but it was going away from Washington, which seemed to be the right thing.
But at 9:38 a.m., the plane does strike, crashing into the Pentagon.
What did you think when you heard the Pentagon had been struck?
Then there was no question that, yeah, it was a commercial flight. And you're wondering, we're being attacked. What's next?
Washington, D.C. is where United Flight 93 soon will be headed. As American Flight 77 was breaching Washington's airspace to eventually hit the Pentagon.
Above the floors where the plane hit were now thick with smoke and virtually impassable. Ron DiFrancesco, who had climbed up seeking clear air, was now desperately climbing down. On the 78th floor, in the one stairwell that had not been destroyed, he laid down gasping for air.
Somebody lifted me out of there. I got up and, felt my way towards the stairwell. And at that point, I saw all the drywall down there was on fire. And once I ran past that, the stairwell was clear. I was by myself.
Though no one could know, the Twin Towers were both perilously close to collapse. For those still in the buildings, time was short. On the 83rd floor of the North Tower, a group including Jonathan Judd and Fred Eichler was still trapped in the office.
I don't think we could have survived another 5 or 10 minutes in our office. That's how bad the smoke was getting. I just did not figure we were going to get out. And we were just prepared to die, in the office. I mean, that's what was going through our heads. I was sitting on a chair, and I was facing the door, and about 9:30, I spotted this flashlight.
And you could see the beams of light going through the door, and it was like a godsend.
And it turned out to be a fireman and a building worker. I jumped up, signaled them, and they did come in and basically rescued us.
Saved by rescue workers who reached the 83rd floor of the North Tower. Saved by the glass office doors that let them see the flashlight. Just down the hall, a group of 13 people were trapped inside the offices of General Telecom. The front doors were wood. They couldn't see the flashlight. They were not discovered. All would perish. 83 floors below, Chris Young, still stuck in his elevator, is desperately trying to pry open the doors. They will not budge. He still has no idea what is going on.
I sat back down on the floor. I started just humming to myself. It did get very boring in there, and I would sit there and I would start running through, scenarios of what might have happened or whatever. And I could vaguely hear it, not very well, but outside the elevator, I could vaguely hear, sirens. I heard occasional screams. I could never, make out voices or anything or hear people talking.
Those people who would survive were moving quickly now down to the streets. And strangers encouraged strangers, assisting the wounded, comforting those in shock.
I think we sort of got through it by just kind of calling out floor by floor. You know, okay, we're at 66. Okay, we're at 65. You know, only 63 more to go. You know, 50. See how many we made.
Floor 20. I just remembered it was the 20th floor, and I just said, I can't do this anymore because I was hurting so bad. And I stopped.
Her arms were severely burned. Her face appeared to be burned. She was limping. Both her wrists looked to be broken.
And Kelly just said, come on. He said, we did all these flights. You got 20 more. And I says, okay. And we just did it.
I knew I was growing tired at times. And Eric would tell me, you know, he said, why don't you just sit down? And I think I'd sit down and I go, no, we have to go. Because there was just something inside of me that kept saying, we have to get out of here.
As we were going down the stairs, I mean, I remember I had tears in my eyes, and Fred Eichler was putting his arm around me, trying to calm me down, and he's saying, you know, what's wrong? Are you okay?
He really thought, you know, he was never going to, you know, see his baby again. And I know going down the steps, many times I put my arm around him and I said, we're going to make it, you know, we're going to be okay. The people who were going down stayed to the left, and the firemen were on the right side of the stairwell coming up. And that is a very haunting memory, seeing all those firemen going up the staircases. We were going down, knowing that probably they did not survive.
There was a look of both determination and fear in their faces that I'll never forget. I see it every day. I think about it every day.
You know, we definitely wished him Godspeed. But that was like down in the 30s. And they were huffing and puffing in, and I'm like, you're nowhere near where you need to be. He says, be happy you're going down instead of coming up.
Firefighters would finally reach the 78th floor of the South Tower in time to find people trapped and alive, but too late to get them out. On street level, people from some of the highest and most devastated floors were finally out of the building and into the arms of waiting rescue workers.
I remember as people see us coming, I guess because of the way we looked, you know, Donna, you know, bleeding, I have, you know, clothes are shredded and blood and debris all through our hairs and on our feet. They just part like the Red Sea to let us through.
So when I came out of the building, I think I was just collapsing at that point. And I remember Dominic carrying me and telling me it's going to be okay.
And I just said, don't worry about it, you're out now. I've got you. I said, if it hurts, just squeeze me. And she held tighter. And I said, you'll see your family today, don't worry about it, you're out. You're going to see your family, you'll go home, you'll be okay.
I don't even remember who took me. I just remember it being someone uniformed.
Mary Jose was immediately put on a stretcher, but not without saying goodbye to Eric Thompson.
And I remember giving him a hug and telling him, thank you for saving my life.
Hang in there, lady.
Ling Young made it out to the curb, escorted by a fireman from the 51st floor down. All the wounded were quickly loaded into ambulances. Stanley Primnath and Brian Clark stared back at the burning buildings.
And he looked through the trees, and he said, you know, Brian, he said, I think that tower could come down.
And Brian had this look in his eyes. Stan, I told you steel don't bend. I'm an engineer. And we heard this strange sound. It was like steel bending and creaking. It was like a horrible, ghostly sound. And this building started to sway from side to side.
And I didn't finish the sentence, and we watched the tower start to slide down into its own dust.
As the South Tower began to fall, Ron DiFrancesco was just reaching the exit. he is one of the last people to make it out alive.
I looked out to Liberty Street and saw a big fireball coming. That's all I remember.
Ron DeFrancesco was blown across the street. He regained consciousness days later in a hospital. He had a fractured skull and burns over 67% of his body. Inside the North Tower, Fire Chief Rich Picciotto had worked his way up to the 35th floor when the South Tower went down.
All of a sudden, this noise starts. This horrendous, powerful noise. Kind of just freezes everyone in their tracks, and we're just looking up because it's coming from above us. You know, what is that? The building is shaking. We're looking up. We're all just looking at the ceiling, and I'm just waiting for the ceiling to explode. And then the noise kind of just goes through us. And then the noise just blows, and then it stops. Utter silence.
George Slay had just come down all the way from the North Tower's 91st floor.
All the lights went out, and I was blown across the concourse, just the force of what I imagined a tornado would be. I was able to stay on my feet, and was enveloped in a huge cloud of dust, and I thought my life was over at that point. And again, I just prayed to God to spare me, and in His mercy He did.
Within the space of 100 minutes, George Slay had survived the crash of a plane just 20 feet over his head, and now the collapse of a skyscraper at his feet. Chris Young was still in his North Tower elevator. He did not know what had just happened, but he had heard it.
First it started just as a rumble, and I could sort of feel it shaking into the elevator. It made the elevator just increasingly shake and shake and shake. And then it was followed by this gust of wind that started just pressing in just these massive amounts of dust in through the side cracks of the doors. And at that point, I did just sort of ball up totally on the floor with the shirt around my head because I didn't know what was going on.
When the South Tower collapsed, the fire department ordered the evacuation of all rescue personnel from the North Tower.
I took the bullhorn and I went to all 3 stairwells and yelled up and down. We're evacuating, we're getting out. This is the fire department, we're getting out.
Finally, the power just goes out. There was no particular event that preceded it, but just the power goes out in the elevator. It goes dark for a second, and then emergency lights do come on.
For one last time, Chris Young goes to the elevator doors and tries to pry them apart. And suddenly they open to the lobby of the North Tower.
It was I didn't know what to make of it at the time, but just a very surreal scene with everything of the lobby just completely debris strewn, and just inches of this sort of grayish, pinkish dust was everywhere, all over the place. And there was no one in the lobby. But then outside the building, I saw 2 firefighters, and I just yelled out to them, where do I go? And one of them turned back and looked at me and just sort of motioned me over with his hand. And then I took a look up the tower, and all I could see was, the smoke coming from the upper floors and fire shooting out. And I just let out, oh my God. But the firefighters just sort of jerked me then and said, come on, we gotta go.
Just as Chris Young got out of the building, the North Tower began to collapse. The fire chief, Rich Picciotto, was still on the 6th floor.
All of a sudden, that noise starts again. That horrendous noise from the last time, this noise, now it's intensified 100 times. The building is shaking like crazy now. And You just knew it was going to be on you in a matter of seconds, and it was. I, tried to run down the stairs and fell down, and tried to get up and fell again, tumbled, and then I had this falling sensation. And then a couple seconds later, deathly silence again. Black, silent black, and I'm covered with dust, debris. But I realized I was alive. So I just called out, is there anyone else here? And I started hearing, yeah, I'm here too. From both above me and below me.
In the rubble of the North Tower, part of one stairwell had remained intact. 14 people, 12 of them firemen, had survived there. But they were trapped, including Captain J. Jonas, who was on his radio.
I said, Mayday, 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 ladder 6 to command post, Mayday. And the Deputy Chief Tom Herring answers, says, go ahead, ladder 6. This is ladder 6. We are in the North Tower, tower number 1, in the B stairway, and we're trapped between the 2nd and 4th floor. I get choked up every time I talk about this, but I remember Cliff Stabner in particular getting on the radio and say, we're coming for you, brother, we're coming for you. And they were. The Army of the New York City Fire Department was coming to get us.
Being realistic, I said, well, there's no way they're ever going to find us. There's 100 stories of debris on top of me. I just thought that this was going to be a tomb. I prayed, please God, make it quick, and it didn't happen.
For 3 hours, the firemen waited in the darkness, and then the smoke and the dust of the collapsed tower began to settle.
I'm just laying on my back there and looking up, and all of a sudden I could see a little, like from black, I could see a gray area. And then it's getting a little bit brighter and a little bit brighter. And I called up, I said, do you guys see that? What is that?
All of a sudden, a beam of sunshine broke through the dust, and it came into the stairway. And it almost looked like a light from the heavens, literally. And it just hit me, and I says, guys, I see sunshine. There used to be 106 floors above us, and now I see sunshine. This isn't as bad as we thought. And I says, we're gonna get out of here.
And then I said, Jay, I'm climbing up further to the light. And I climb up, and all of a sudden I'm on this pile of debris, but I'm out. You can see the sky. All I could see was devastation. What you would picture a nuclear attack to be like. Just burning buildings and just steel and rubble.
They still had to climb out, a dangerous journey that would take hours.
You have all this twisted steel and ripped steel, which is all very sharp and jagged. And all of it's coated with this dust, which makes it very slippery. It's almost acting like talcum powder. Every once in a while, I say, come on, boys, keep going, keep going. I says, you don't have to move fast, but you got to keep going.
The final obstacle, a 3-story deep trench of twisted steel that they must cross.
And they were like, oh, we got to climb up the other side of that. I says, yeah, so your wife and kids are on the other side of that trench. Just keep going, keep going. I was able to see all my guys go up over that hill, and I got to send them home that day.
None of the survivors who gave us their time claim they have fully recovered. The past year has been harder than they imagined.
It's like my shadow. It's never gonna go away. It goes with me every place I go. It's the first thing I think about in the morning. It's the last thing I think about at night.
Every time that I've looked at a plane, every time that I've seen an aircraft, I have to watch that plane until it's past and it's gone.
every day's a struggle. I miss laughing the way I used to.
As I walk to work every morning, the first thing I do is look at the skyline and see if all the tall buildings are standing. And then not walk by them.
I went to war, and I didn't ask to. Wasn't trained for it, you know. I wasn't prepared for it. And to be thrown into that, you know. That's tough to live with every day.
The lives of most of the World Trade Center survivors we met have returned to normal, as much as that is possible. Most of them are back at work and pursuing careers that were so horribly interrupted a year ago. After 8 operations, Ling Young is still working full-time on her recovery. Mary Jose has had 3 operations so far, as has Donna Spera, who has never set foot back in New York City. Fred Eichler's insurance business did not survive the destruction of that day, and he's still unemployed. Kelly Ryer is now married. His first child, a baby boy, is due at the end of November. The fire department captain, Jay Jonas, was promoted to battalion chief 5 days after the Trade Center disaster. Ron DiFrancesco tried to continue working in the shadow of Ground Zero this year, but he has recently moved with his family to Canada.
Been a tough anniversary. We want to thank all those people who took the time to share their stories with us. It meant a great deal to us. Our coverage will continue.
ABC News 9/11 will continue.